Sports Wisconsin is reporting out that Rodgers is slated to start on Sunday, and 670 The Score, the Chicago radio station, is also reporting on their station that Rodgers is going to be starting. So word out of Green Bay is, at least the chatter is that he's going to be starting. He took first snaps in practice today in a rotational with Flynn. And from what it sounds like, he's supposed to be good to go. We'll find out in the next 15 minutes if that is true or not, because that's what Mike McCarthy's going to give his press conference after practice today.
What other injury news do you got for us to update us on? I know we've had a lot of injuries. Clay Matthews, Randall Cobb, give us a little update, bud.
Randall Cobb practiced today as well in full pads, practiced with Nelson and Jones, and it's looking like Cobb is just about ready to come back. No word. He still hasn't been activated. He's still on that IR designated return list, but what I think could end up happening if Clay Matthews did in fact break that thumb again, I think Matthews goes to the IR, and I think Randall Cobb gets activated tomorrow. That's my guess.
That's a pretty good guess, Evan. I know you and I were talking about when Randall Cobb comes back, how are the Packers going to use him? They seem to have a little bit of receiving going on right now that is actually pretty stable, with Boykin stepping up. Got Jones, Nelson, and you and I had talked about how much of a factor could Randall Cobb be. I know we have a couple keys to the game, but before we do that, let's throw this out there. You know, Randall Cobb gets activated for the game, practiced in full pads. You know, how do you think the Packers might be able to use him here, bud? I mean, if he's on the field, you've got to account for him, and you can't just say, oh, Randall Cobb was hurt, broke his leg, so we're going to leave him wide open. But what do you think the Packers might be able to do with him? I know that us saying this is just purely opinion. We're not Packer coaches. But what do you think might be some of the formations or some of the situations they can use him in?
Well, as we know, the Bears linebackers are quite bad. They do have Lance Briggs back, but he didn't look like the Lance Briggs prior to his injury at all on Sunday. And the safety play for the Bears isn't the greatest either, especially in Chris Conte. He's probably the worst tackler I've ever seen play the game of football. He just can't tackle whatsoever. So I would see them going back to using Cobb kind of in that slot role that they have been using him in. And I think against a team like the Bears, if they, line him up in the slot, he should be able to rip that defense apart. Or anyone they line up in the slot, really. It can be Nelson, it can be Perlis, it can be Cobb. Anyone they line up in that slot, they're going to tear the Bears' defense apart.
Yeah, and you and I were talking before the show, and I was saying, to bring Cobb on, probably it's just going to be a handful of snaps in this game. I mean, his game conditioning can't be that great. He broke his leg. I know he's been back running around, but I think you and I had mentioned there had been a report maybe a month ago that he was a little bit behind in his recovery time, and that had to really play on his conditioning. So I don't know what his game condition is like, but if he's in pads, that's a good sign. I'm thinking they can try some of those things when they're running him out of the backfield, quick little swing passes. But I agree with you. The slot's going to be a key in this game. And I think that we're able to exploit that slot position and honestly exploit it with either quarterback, Rodgers or Flynn, because of what you're saying. That should be open, and we should be able to hit that pass 9 out of 10 times, maybe 10 out of 10 times. But with that said, bud, let's get to the preview. You and I had talked before. We pretty much agree what the two keys are going to be in this game. So take it away. What are the two big keys of this game, bud? And I didn't know that I lost Evan. I was talking.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know what happened. Same thing that happened a couple weeks ago with Kevin. I just all of a sudden stopped talking. So
yeah, and I wasn't.
You can hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you, and I get so into the show that I don't look up at the studio on the screen, so I didn't even know you were gone, and so I turned it over to you, and I'm like, then I looked up, I'm like, oh man, he's on hold, but I was saying,
yeah,
you and I pretty much agree on the keys to the game. We had talked about it before the show. We totally believe that the running game is going to be key on both sides of the ball. So I'm going to turn it over to you, as we always do in the preview. Let you talk about what the keys to the game are, and then I'll add a few things that, along with what you're saying, bud. So take it away.
Well, without Rodgers, the key is going to be running the football. The Bears are horrible at stopping the run. The Eagles had, I believe, 270 yards rushing against the Bears this past week. And Eddie Lacy, the last matchup, had 150, and Starks had, I believe, 50 yards, and he had a big 34, 35-yard touchdown run on top of it. So regardless of who you have a quarterback, you have to establish the run, and you have to run at the Bears. And then once you get that run game going, then you can attack them with the play action, take it to Starks, Lacy, Bell, whoever the running back is, and go over the top with Nelson, a play that they love doing with Rodgers in there, and they haven't been doing since he got hurt. If Rodgers is in there, they can throw that post pattern they love doing with Nelson off of those play actions. And then defensively, they have to stop Matt Forte. If they stop Matt Forte and force the Bears into a one-dimensional game and can rattle Cutler, we all know Cutler's going to throw 2 or 3 of what I like to call the 50-50 balls that the defense should be able to catch. And if he throws those up and the defense catches them, it's going to be a very long day for the Bears. So those are my two major keys. And I think if we can run the ball effectively and then stop their run, it should be a pretty easy day. Like I said, the Bears cannot stop the run.
Yeah, you had a couple good points there, and I know you and I had talked about this before the show. I have the stats up from game number 1, and we ran the ball very effectively in game number 1. Eddie Lacy, 150 yards, like you said. James Starks had 40. His long was a 32-yard touchdown run. We can run the ball against the Bears. That defense hasn't gotten any better. I think it's gotten worse since we played them last time. People are running all over the.
Yeah, it has.
People are running all over the Chicago Bears, and we have to stick to the run game, like you said. I agree with you. It doesn't matter if Rodgers is in there or Flynn's in there. We need to pound the ball. We ran for 199 yards in game number 1 against them. And we're going to have to do that again. That same thing is going to have to happen. Total rushing plays in game 1, Evan, 29. We averaged 6.9 yards per rush in the first game. If we do that Sunday, average 6.9, and we don't even have to average 6.9. If we can average 4 yards a carry and keep pounding the ball, we'll win the game. Now, here's where the difference comes in, and you can chime in after, because you had mentioned a little bit. If we can establish the running game and have Aaron Rodgers in the game, this now opens up the entire playbook, and it'll make his return much easier for the Packers. And it's going to go to the flip side. It's going to go to the flip side. Again, doesn't matter which quarterback's in there. If we can't establish the run, either quarterback's going to have a long day. But I think what we'll see with Rodgers in there, and again, all signs are pointing that he's going to be in there, is that over-the-top play, like you said, to Nelson, Jones, and that'll be a nice sight to be able to see on Sunday. That'll be awesome if that happens. But on the flip side of this, I want to talk a little bit about Cutler. You had mentioned the 50-50 balls. And let me ask you this. With Clay Matthews getting hurt, breaking that thumb again, how do you think we're going to dial up some pressure on Cutler, Evan? Because I noticed when Clay Matthews is hurt, we can get pressure, but it's not consistent pressure. So what are your thoughts about getting pressure on Cutler Sunday without Clay Matthews in the game?
Well, I think guys are going to have to step up and be fundamentally sound. And we saw it last time Matthews got hurt when he first hurt the thumb. Guys on defense stepped it up, and they, for whatever reason, were able to do their job even better. The defense seemed to play better for whatever reason without Matthews in there. But they're going to need Ulamba, they're going to need Mike Neal, and they're going to need Nick Perry to step it up and create some pressure on the outside. And they're going to need Mike Daniels, they're going to need Dayton Jones, they're going to need Brian Pickett, B.J. Raji. They're going to need those guys to step up in the middle and put some pressure up the middle to not give Cutler any room to step up and try to get him throwing off his back foot. They don't have to get sacks. They absolutely do not have to get sacks. They just have to get in Cutler's face, and they have to get around his feet so he doesn't have a clean pocket to throw. And we all know Cutler loves throwing off his back foot anyways. So if they can create a messy pocket, that's going to create some mistakes from Cutler. So they don't have to get sacks. They just have to create a messy pocket.
Yeah, and I think the key to this, Evan, is that they have to do it early. Because what you're saying, get a messy pocket, you call it a messy pocket, and when it's a messy pocket, I call it having happy feet. Jay Cutler gets happy feet. If he gets pressure early, it seems like he gets rattled. And then the pocket may still be there, but then we don't have to get the extreme pressure like you're talking about. I don't care if we get 0 sacks, but if we're in his face, like you said, that's all we need to do. And especially if we do it early. If we're there early, he will get happy feet, and we will get 2 to 3 interceptions, or at least 2 to 3 chances for interceptions. Now, I think the secondary is playing a little bit better when it's coming to the coverage. We still have some breakdowns, but I think it all turned around in that Dallas game. At least we were holding on to the ball. And I think if we can do that on Sunday, should really benefit us. But it all comes down to that pressure. And like you said, it doesn't have to be sacks. We only had 1 sack in the first game. But, you know, the thing is, I go back to that first game, and if you've noticed, I've been referencing this game over and over. Because that's the game that Rodgers got hurt. Got knocked out early. We only lost by 7, Evan. And you alluded to it.
Yeah.
Wallace was the quarterback for 3 full quarters, and we hung in that game. And to be honest, I don't think Wallace played all that well. And like you said, he hadn't been really prepared to be able to step in the game. I mean, he's taking some reps. But when I say he's not prepared, you gave me the great answer when we weren't on the air. So let the fans know what I mean by not being prepared when I had said that, how you had answered to me about Wallace going into that game.
Well, when Rodgers went down, Wallace went into the game without taking any snaps. It was the first team that week. And we all saw it back with Jarrett Boykin when he first stepped on the field, having to be in a starting role against the Ravens. He had struggled. But when he got in practice for a week and was able to take first-team reps and prepare with the first team, he only got better. You know, Seneca Wallace, unfortunately, got hurt that first drive of the game against the Eagles. But just that first drive alone, he looked much sharper in that first drive than he did the entire game the week prior, where he was, I think, 9 for 22 or something like that. And that's very important, you know, getting those first-team reps. You become comfortable with the guys on the field with you, and they become comfortable with you. So it's very important, and that's what Wallace lacks. Now, what's helped Matt Flynn over these past few weeks, and if Flynn ends up having to be the guy tomorrow, Sunday, or if Rodgers starts and heaven forbid something else happens to Rodgers, that he gets knocked out of the game, Matt Flynn's going to be much better prepared than Seneca Wallace was going in the last time. But I think he plays, and I think he makes it through the game.
Yeah. I just wanted the fans to know what I meant by not being prepared, because you gave me that answer that way. It really makes sense. And that's why I keep going back to this game, that with all of that confusion, with none of the reps, with putting a backup in that probably didn't expect to play at all this year, we still hung in that game with bad quarterback play. And we can do that again. The one stat that we're going to have to, and I'm going to add this to the keys, is we have to be able to protect either of the quarterbacks. I mean, it's usually a key every game. We talk about it. But they had 5 sacks in the first meeting. And so that offensive line, which I think is a little bit cohesive now. I mean, still banged up a little bit, but at least I like the way the line is held together. I think they're getting a little more comfortable playing with each other, and they're going to have to do a good job of keeping that Bears front four off of the quarterback and limit the sacks. And if we can do that, I believe that we'll be able to have time, like you said, to hit that slot, which is open all the time. And watching that Bears defense, I don't see any reason that we can't put points on the board consistently. With that said, Evan, when you look at that offensive line, what do you think the keys for that offensive line are going to be on Sunday? If you can say one thing about what the line must do on Sunday for us to win, what would it be?
Well, Julius Peppers has had a really down year. He hasn't been the Julius Peppers that we're used to. But with that said, Julius Peppers still has the raw ability to completely take over a game. They have to neutralize Julius Peppers. If it's Bakhtiari, if it's Barclay, whoever Peppers is lining up on the field, even if it's sitting in the lane. Because in the years past, I haven't seen the Bears do it as much, but in years past, they love moving Peppers all over the D-line. Kind of what Green Bay used to do with Reggie White way back in the 90s. They love moving Peppers around, and if Peppers gets going, he can take over that game. So they have to slow down Peppers, and he's really the only guy in that D-line that worries me in pass protection. The other defensive end, his name escapes me at the moment, the one that put the hit on Rodgers.
McClellan.
Hasn't done anything since that game.
Yeah, McClellan.
Yeah, McClellan. He hasn't done anything since that game. And Barclay has to start fast. We've seen it too often this year that he starts out a little slow, but then he gets better as the game progresses. He needs to start out fast because we can't allow, Rodgers to take a hit on the first drive of the game like that again.
No, I agree. And I think also another key here is no stupid penalties. No stupid penalties on the offensive line. No face masks. I mean, sometimes a holding, if it's going to save your quarterback from a crushing blow, I'm okay with it then. They just got to play smart.
That holding happens too.
Yeah, it happens. And I'm okay with that, but I'm talking about the stupid penalties. I watched that Josh Sidden penalty, and really, at that time, he was being held up and blocked. I know he was trying to slow that guy down, but he just grabbed a face mask. I know it's instinct, I know it's reaction, but we can't afford those drives that kill us. And I'm not talking just offensive line. I'm talking the receivers. If we're running the ball, just use your head. I mean, sometimes I'm looking at these holding calls going, why are you even holding there? There's no need to. And so by starting fast, I also am going to throw in there, we've got to eliminate stupid penalties that kill our drives. We talked about it in the recap last week. Some of those penalties just killed us. But, as we flip over now, Evan.
Yeah, Michelle NFL, she actually had an article on Bleacher Report I read yesterday or the day before, pretty much talking about the exact same thing that we talked about on the Ramble, the recap that you brought up, the penalties. So you should check that out. Go to Bleacher Report and look up Michelle's article. She talks about that.
Yeah, I'll definitely look it up. I follow her on Twitter. She's got some good stuff. She really puts out some quality articles, so I'll definitely have to check that out this afternoon. But, the one last thing that we talk about this once in a while, Evan, is special teams. And so if we're going to grade out special teams, I think it's going to be very key for us. Hester, all he does now is return kicks. And we're going to have to play really good on special teams, especially in this bad weather conditions. The frigid weather, that field, could be frozen, could be slick because of that. Really got to play, in our lanes to be able to make sure that we limit Hester. I mean, I hope he doesn't break one away, but what do you think about special teams play? I give the edge to the Bears. Hester might be getting older, but that guy can still break it if you don't tackle him.
Yeah, special teams is going to be key. Last week, the Packers struggled in the special teams game quite bad, and trying to slow down the Steelers' return game. And the Packers, on the other side of it, were able to get some nice yardage in their return game. So it's going to, as you said, the Bears definitely have the advantage. With Devin Hester back there, he's always a threat to take it to distance, and that's going to be a key factor, especially if it comes down to a field goal. Crosby has done really well this year, but Soldier Field is a tough place to kick, and Gold, he knows how to kick in Soldier Field really well. He's one of the all-time highest kicking percentages in NFL history, I believe, even with missing the 65-yarder that the Bears stupidly tried earlier this year. And I don't even know if stupidly is an actual word or
not. I'm not sure if it is a word, Evan, but I like it. I like it. Maybe we can get that word in the Urban Dictionary. Stupidly. But yeah, I don't know why they tried it either. But hey, all I can say is it's the Bears. It's the Bears. That they do things like that every once in a while. So with that, Evan, we look at all these keys to the game, and we spend time and we look at things. I look back at game one. I looked at the stats. I looked at how many sacks we gave up, how many sacks we had. We're looking at rushing yards. We're looking at Aaron Rodgers playing. But you can agree or disagree with me. At this point, none of that matters, because this is Packers versus Bears. Two people that want to bloody each other like a backyard brawl. They just want to beat each other up. And that's what I see happening on Sunday. Two teams that just want to bloody each other. And there's so much at stake in this game. It's not just another game. The winner goes to the playoffs. The loser gets to go home, drink hot cocoa, and sit by the fireplace and watch their rival play in the playoffs. So there's a lot at stake here. How do you think this game is going to turn out?
Well, I think the Packers win, with or without Rodgers. Obviously, as we said earlier, it sounds like he's going to play. But I think the Packers win with or without Rodgers. And without Rodgers, I would say Packers are going to win 34-24. With Rodgers in the game, I would say it's probably going to be about 38 or 41-21. So I see the Packers winning either way. I see them controlling the line of scrimmage, get the running game established. With Rodgers, you're going to see a lot more explosive plays, so look for more explosive plays. And I just don't see the Bears being able to put up much of a fight right now. They are not in good shape. If Cutler can get hot and get Brandon Marshall going, the Bears should be able to put up some more points than the 21 to 24 points I envision them getting. But that's a big if at this point, because Trestman didn't call the best game last week, and who knows how he's going to rebound this week.
Yeah, I'm on your side with this. I think either way, Rodgers, Flynn, Packers are going to come away victorious. I'm not giving two scores. I know a lot of people have. Before I give my scores, I'm going to go out. I'm going to give Ben from Twitter. I'm going to give him some props. I don't know if you saw on Twitter, I'd asked the fans to give us some predictions. But Ben had given me a prediction, and he had said, with Rodgers, Packers win 42-27. Without Rodgers, Packers win 27-17. So Ben thinks we're going to win, like you, both ways, and me, both ways. I'm going with one score, no matter who the quarterback is. And I think it's the Packers by 8, 21-13. And if you notice, 13 points only, Evan. I think the Bears have a pretty good offense with Jeffries, Forte, Marshall. But I'm going to go back to what you're saying. After what happened in Philadelphia on Sunday night, that team, I don't care about what's at stake and all those things. It is tough to rebound from a loss like that. You were an athlete in high school. I was also a former athlete. When you get demoralized, and that's what the Eagles did to them. They pounded them. It is tough to rebound from that. I mean, now I know they're professionals, but I think offensively, I think that they might be able to move the ball, but I had mentioned to you before the show, this defense, as many holes as it has, and as bad as we think they play at sometimes, they've come up with some pretty big stops in Dallas. Then even last week against Pittsburgh, they made that stop and got us the ball back with the game tied, and then Flynn had his fumble. So every once in a while, this defense shows me that they can make the big stop. And if you remember earlier in the season, they couldn't make that stop. You and I were getting on them about it. We just said, make a play. But they've been doing it in the last couple of weeks. And I think that this team is going to do it on Sunday. And once they get those stops, I think against this defense, we're going to put points on the board. And I love how you say our defense plays well. You call them front runners. And I think that happens this game. I think we lead the game. I think that our defense makes a stop. The offense capitalizes. And we control this game and we go to the playoffs. So I'm saying Packers by 8. But with that said, Bud, we have just under 3 minutes. Why don't you share with the fans what you and I have talked about? I know you put it out on Twitter, but we have a couple minutes to talk about the programming change that you and I are going to start making to the Ramble to give the fans a benefit and also just another piece of production for the Red Light Sports Ramble.
Are you talking about the show we're adding?
Yeah, on Saturdays.
Yeah, we're going to be adding a Saturday edition, and this is going to be more opinion-based show rather than, granted, a lot of this is our opinion anyway, but we try to, speak mostly of facts. But Saturday is going to be more of an opinion-based show where we're going to look at the week of sports that was and kind of, give our insight on it, and I guess just kind of rant on different things we saw during the week that just kind of grinded our gears, or we didn't like. So it should be interesting, and I'm excited to get it started.
That was a great idea. I got to give you full credit for that one. And what I call it the Red Light Sports Ramble venting time. I mean, this is our time to vent about things that we want to vent about. Usually, and it's great
90 seconds
for the fans because it's usually something you and I do before the show every time. We vent about something, and we say how mad we are about something or what we think about something. And then, like you said, we go on the show, and yeah, these are our opinions. And I always will joke, I'm the idiot with an opinion. But we usually base things on fact, and that's how we formulate our opinion. Saturday, though, I think it's just going to be a free-for-all. It should be fun. And especially, there'll probably be probably a few laughs in there and some things like that. But with that said, Bud, just under a minute to go. Anything for the fans before tomorrow?
Still waiting to hear from McCarthy. He hasn't stepped to the podium yet. He's usually late as it is anyway, so we're still waiting. Well,
he's probably talking to the doctors one last time. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to glue my eyes to ESPN. I'm actually at work, but I'll pull up ESPN on the computer and see what happens.
Well, you can go to Packers.com. Well, you can go to Packers.com and stream it live there, too.
Cool. I'm going to go right there then, bud. With that said, we'll see everybody at the next red light. Hope you enjoy your day. Talk to you soon.